guys, welcome back to the Pulling Curls podcast. Today on episode 218, we are talking about sleep. Your sleep, your baby's sleep, everybody's sleeping. So let's untangle it. Hi, I'm Hilary, a serial overcomplicator. I'm also a nurse, mom to three, and the curly head behind Pulling Curls and the pregnancy nurse. This podcast aims to help us stop overcomplicating things and remember how much easier it is to keep things simple. Let's smooth out those snarls with Pregnancy and Parenting Untangled, the Pulling Curls podcast. Before we get started, today's show is sponsored by Family Routines. If you are looking to get into a good nighttime routine, it is so important to get into a good daytime routine. You can find Family Routines at pullingcurls.com, or you can find a link in the show notes. Today's guest, I found him on the TikTok. I was just scrolling through and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy has so much good sleep advice for babies and adults. And I'm actually using tips, which you're going to find out in this episode, that are actually starting to work in my own life, which is a big win for Hilary. On social media, he is at That Sleep Doc. He is a double board certified doctor in child neurology and sleep medicine. So super important. And he is the research behind a lot of this children's sleep research. He has also written a book called My Child Won't Sleep. I want to introduce today's guest, Sujay Kansagra. Hey, Sujay, welcome to the Pulling Curls podcast.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh. So I saw your TikTok. I saw the TikTok where you were like, somebody was saying, you need to look at the sleep research. And you were saying, I am the sleep research. And I was like, oh yeah, this is who we need to have on the podcast, because there are so many tired moms out there thinking that if their baby cries it out, they're a horrible person.
Well, I'm happy to shed light on all the research that's out there regarding sleep training and helping infants sleep and helping parents get better sleep.
Yeah, because it's so important. Research shows, in case anybody's listening, that if you get more than 4 hours of sleep as a postpartum mom, you're more likely to not have postpartum depression. So I'm always up for trying to get more sleep for the moms out there.
And I'll also say that when it comes to sleep deprivation, we know that sleep is so important for everything that the body does, such that if you're not getting the sleep you need, we know that it worsens almost every medical condition, psychiatric condition you can think of. It's a biological imperative. We have to sleep and try to get the best sleep we can.
Yeah. Okay. So first question, Sujay, what do the studies show on if you're using Cry It Out in some sort of a method, are you ruining your kids?
So the short answer is no, you're not ruining your kids. The longer answer is there are 4 methods for sleep training that have some data to actually support them. That includes extinction, which is otherwise known as Cry It Out, which is a method that over time, even sleep physicians, we've kind of strayed away from, although it has data to prove its safety and efficacy. The second method is graduated extinction, often known as the Ferber method or controlled crying. The third is camping out, and the fourth is scheduled awakenings. These are the 4 core methods that actually have data to support them, and we actually have a practice parameter within our Academy of Sleep Medicine that goes through each of these. And when it comes to the data behind, are you hurting your children? Is it cortisol increasing, et cetera, et cetera? There is a debate amongst the internet world, but amongst the medical world, there's really no debate. There's really no debate. And I think it's really important for people to understand this. People can say whatever they want on social media platforms. When it comes to the research behind sleep training, there is no real debate. The data shows that it's effective, it's safe, with clear short and medium term improvements, but no long-term benefits or risks. So that's kind of the summary.
Yeah. So essentially, it's not really helping the baby to sleep train. Is that what I'm sensing or hearing at the last caveat?
It is.
Okay.
No, so it is. So we do think that short term, it helps with a variety of sleep metrics, depending on what you're measuring. We do think that it helps with sleep continuity for children. But if you look 5 years out and say, okay, let me see what the benefits and harms were of sleep training, and you look at a variety of categories, including sleep and sleep behavior and mood and anxiety, there doesn't appear to be any difference amongst children that were sleep trained versus not sleep trained. So that's reassuring in 2 ways. One, people always talk about, is this going to hurt my child, et cetera? The answer is no. There's no data that it causes harm to children. The second is, well, do I have to sleep train? And the answer there is also no. And this is what I tell people. I said, it's a personal decision. It's an individual family decision. As a sleep physician, if I knew there were clear long-term improvements to say, the child is going to become an amazing sleeper for the rest of their life, then I'd be a little bit more pushy and say you really should try to sleep train your child if you're having sleep issues. That's not the case either. So it's very much a personal decision.
Yeah. And ultimately, I mean, that's what I came down to just like as a nurse. It's if you're starting to lose your mind, then you might want to start about sleep training. If you're loving what you're doing right then keep loving what you're doing right then.
100%. If it's not broke, there's no need to fix it. But I always tell families, especially once your child is older than 4 months, ideally closer to 6 months, if they're having repetitive awakenings at night in which they need you to help transition them back to sleep because they haven't developed that skill of being able to put themselves to sleep in the beginning of the night, that's where sleep training can be beneficial. And it usually follows that pattern. It's some sort of caregiver assistance at the beginning of the night to help them fall asleep with multiple awakenings, which are totally normal. And during these normal awakenings, the child can now not transition back to sleep because they've learned to become dependent on something in their environment, typically a caregiver. So the caregiver has to come back in, use that same intervention to help them fall asleep. And this causes both awakenings for the child, for the parent, and usually misery the next day.
Yeah. Okay. So I have not slept great since I had kids. I feel like they ruined me. And having teenagers has a whole new variety of sleep issues involved. But I was asking Sujay if he could recommend a few things just to help sleep in general for all of us, because I think moms, they're always like, oh, maybe that's a menopause symptom. And I was like, great, I'm starting menopause at 40. Like what can we do? Just a few tips on helping our own sleep.
Absolutely. Well, I will start with what I consider the foundation for good sleep. Everybody talks about sleep hygiene. So let's go through kind of the core pillars of sleep hygiene. And, what is sleep hygiene? We talk about dental hygiene and personal hygiene. Well, sleep hygiene is essentially your behaviors and things in your environment that could hurt or help your sleep. And so the core pillars, number one, having a great nighttime routine. We talk about this for children, but it's also important for adults. 20 to 30 minutes prior to bed, having a set of activities that are calm, relaxing, that you do in the same way every single night around the same time leading up to bed. And after these activities are done, you should be in bed ready to sleep. So having a great nighttime routine. Number two is avoiding substances and things in the environment that can hurt your sleep. That includes alcohol, nicotine, caffeine. It includes bright light exposure because light tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. So you decrease your natural melatonin. So these are all things that you want to avoid. The third thing is having, a comfortable, cool, quiet sleep environment. So the temperature we usually recommend is between 68 and 72 degrees. The body, when it falls asleep, in order to get into deep sleep, the body does tend to drop the temperature a little bit, core body temperature. So having a cool environment is important. And the fourth part, and the final part, is keeping your schedule the same. Ideally, keeping your schedule the same, both weekdays and weekends, such that you're giving your brain adequate sleep opportunity each night, according to what your body needs. Everybody is different, but according to what your body needs, giving your body that opportunity to sleep.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And I think something, especially as moms, we're like, I just want to get in that TikTok time before bed.
That's right. Revenge bedtime procrastination, right? So your life is so busy during the day that you're like, you know what? Now that I have this time to myself, I am going to spend it in a way that I want, even if it means giving up on some sleep. And this is challenging. It's a problem even for me as a sleep physician, at the end of the night saying, you know what, maybe I'll jump right back on my phone, check a couple things. And so it does involve a bit of a lifestyle change. And again, it depends on how much of a problem it is for you. If you're able to get on your social media and scroll through some videos, turn off, fall asleep and wake up refreshed in the morning, it's great. You don't have a problem. But if it's becoming challenging and sleep is an issue and you're waking up multiple times, reaching back for your phone, that's when you need to consider potentially a modification to your activities and habits at night.
Yeah. So what is it called? Revenge nighttime.
Revenge bedtime procrastination.
All right.
This is a fun common term that's out there in the social media world. You're taking revenge on everything that sucked your time up during the day and giving yourself some of that time back at night. Unfortunately, at the harm of your own sleep time.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay. Any other tips?
So then it comes down to what's causing sleep issues, and there are a variety of things. And so during pregnancy, one major thing that comes up is restless leg syndrome. Your child is, getting lots of your iron supplies, and iron is an important cofactor when it comes to making dopamine in your brain, and dopamine is important, we think, in the pathophysiology of restless leg. And so you really want to talk to your provider if you're experiencing restless leg and that's disrupting your sleep. Many parents experience a classic form of insomnia in which the bed becomes a place where we think and we worry and not the place where we rest and relax. And that has a very specific treatment. I'm happy to go into some details there. Some people have a circadian rhythm issue in which their body, they're natural night owls. And so if they're expected to go to bed at 9 or 10, their brain just doesn't want to shut off until noon or 1 o'clock. This is typical for our teenagers. We always blame the electronic devices, but part of it is actually natural brain physiology where we tend to become night owls when we're, teenagers and young adults, but some people have it lifelong. So lots of sleep disorders that come into play once you get past the core of just sleep hygiene.
Okay, that's fascinating. Any tips on adjusting your circadian rhythm if you, say, have to get to class? I'm looking at my kids in college.
Absolutely. So let's talk about how you would advance your circadian rhythm, which means how would you train your body to wake up earlier and go to bed earlier? The main thing that actually tells your brain where to set your circadian rhythm is light exposure, the timing of light exposure. And so the core thing that I usually recommend my patients to do when they're having a very delayed sleep schedule is you want to definitely avoid bright lights for 30 minutes before bed. And then when you wake up in the morning, you want to get plenty of bright light. And so, opening up the windows and making sure you're flooding your eyeballs with light, that tells your body, hey, morning is here. I should be waking up now. And this should be my normal wake up time. And over time, so long as you're kind of exposing your body to light at the right times, it will help you shift in the proper direction. Now, for some people, that's not enough. Just the timing of light exposure doesn't do the trick. And that's where, for some of my patients, and this is where I'd advise your listeners to talk to their own providers, sometimes a very low dose of melatonin taken very early in the evening can also help adjust circadian rhythm. And that's where it actually has good data to support it. Melatonin is not a great sleep aid if you have insomnia. It's actually good for adjusting your circadian rhythm, having you actually move your bedtime and wake up time earlier. In addition to jet lag, that's another indication for melatonin. But that's where the data is. So those are some tips. Now, other thing is making sure you're eating 3 square meals and ideally trying to eat breakfast in the morning. So for teenagers in particular, when they have this delayed circadian rhythm, when they wake up at 7 in the morning, for their body, it feels like it's still 4 in the morning, as if we woke up at 4 in the morning. And it's not easy to eat at that time for many of our teenagers. They just don't feel like it. Their body's not ready. But actually trying to get something in your body, eating at the times that you should be eating, tells your body, hey, this is where my circadian rhythm should be. And we think that can also help keep you lined up in the right spot.
That's amazing. I think that's super helpful because yes, the teens drag themselves out of bed. They go to high school. They don't eat on their way. So if you could just throw a banana at them, maybe it would help.
That could certainly help.
Yeah. Okay, so I have to say I scrolled through a bunch of your TikToks yesterday while I was making dinner, and I have the issue that I wake up at 3 in the morning and I can't go back to sleep. And I've had it for years, since before COVID. So last night I was because I go to bed with a meditation or something on, and then it stops, and then I'm supposed to stay asleep. But you were mentioning just like a baby needs its mommy to come back in and cuddle it to go back to sleep. My brain was like, what happened to the meditation? We're going to sleep with the meditation, Hilary.
Yes.
And it was being my mommy cuddling me back to sleep. So last night I was like, okay, I read until I felt tired. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to lay here and go to sleep. And I slept better because I didn't need my mommy to come back in because I was a big girl that could go to sleep on her own.
I love it. Well, Hilary, let me tell you, first and foremost, something I like to emphasize to everybody is that nighttime awakenings are normal and expected, and to never consider it a failure when you wake up at nighttime. And one of my big pushes for adults is try to become comfortable with being awake in your bed and being totally okay with that. That's okay. For short periods of time, laying awake in bed, completely a normal part of our physiology. We sleep in sleep cycles where we go into deep sleep and lighter sleep every 90 minutes or so. And when we cycle into light sleep, oftentimes we have an awakening. And those awakenings tend to be a lot more prominent as the night goes on because we've paid off a lot of our sleep drive in the early hours. So usually the early 2, 3, 4 hours, usually we don't even remember any awakenings. But as the night goes on, we tend to have more robust wake-ups. But that's totally okay. The second thing I will tell you is exactly like you said. If you are using something in your environment to help you transition to sleep, as a purist from a sleep standpoint, I say you want that thing in the environment continuously through the night. And so for me, that's something like white noise or noise from a fan. Those are probably okay as long as they're at a good volume and not too loud. that's something that can be in your environment the entire night. And if you find that soothing, totally fine. But if it's something that's going to turn off, like meditation music or, some television, etc., from a pure sleep standpoint, I say, get your brain accustomed to falling asleep without it. Because that way, when you wake up in the middle of the night, you don't look around and say, I need that back again. I can fall right back asleep. So, but those are all called sleep onset associations. Anything you're using in your environment to help you fall asleep. And chances are your brain's going to want that back in place when you wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Okay, sleep's important. It's important for our babies. It's important for our moms as a mom, and it's important for our kids. So you're the sleep doc. Is that your username?
I'm that sleep doc. That's right. That sleep doc on just about every social media platform you can imagine. It's all about the data and we follow the data. And so 100% agree. We got to look at the science behind sleep before we make conclusions. I will also tell you that depending on when this podcast comes out, we've done some fascinating research that is kind of a little bit hush-hush right now, but we're hoping to introduce a brand new way for parents to help their infants sleep so that infants sleep well and parents sleep well. And so I hope you'll follow along with me as I kind of, discuss that journey with my followers on social media. It should be interesting and fascinating.
Sujay, are you going to make a course that costs $1,000 to share that with your followers?
Nope. So sleep education, here's my big pitch. Sleep education should be free, and so sleep education will always be free. And I will continue to share everything that I can share through my platforms. Interestingly, what we're going to introduce is a new technology. It's actually a product. And although I can't talk too much about it just yet, it's going to be a product that we think will help infants become better sleepers naturally.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So thanks for coming on, Sujay. I love that this information's free and parents get to do what works for them. That's what I learned mostly today.
That's right. Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and will think more about your sleep and baby sleep. I think what I heard most in this was that your sleep matters and there are things you can do to help your sleep by helping baby to sleep better or things you can do during the night because studies show that we need sleep and we know baby is getting the sleep that they want. But sometimes you're not getting the sleep that you want because maybe you have other kids up, you got to go to work, all those different things. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Definitely find Sujay at That Sleep Doc on social media. Follow him. I'm excited to learn more about his research and whatever device it is that can help babies sleep better. Okay. Stay tuned because next week we are going to talk about organizing under bathroom sink cabinets. I'm going to give you some of my best tips for that. And then the week after that, we are talking about your postpartum plan, which obviously includes how you're going to get sleep. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining us on the Pulling Curls podcast today. If you liked today's episode, please consider reviewing, sharing, subscribing. It really helps our podcast grow. Thank you.